Hey parents, if you're like a lot of the moms and dads that I've met over the years, you've probably heard a lot about attachment parenting, but you might not know exactly what that means. Or you could have an incomplete or even negative view about what it is. You may have heard things like parenting with attachment means that you breastfeed your children until they're 14 years old, or you go to school with them every day and follow them around and never let them out of your sight. Or maybe you've heard that it means giving up your life and your happiness entirely until they go off to college, and even then, you might go with them. I've been a parenting coach for about 20 years now, and I have heard the same myths and misperceptions about what attachment science actually says over and over again. It's been my experience that truly understanding what attachment science actually says can be the key to transforming most of the relationship and behavioral problems that most parents face. So with that in mind, I'd like to take the time today to explain the top 9 myths about attachment and parenting. My name is Todd Sarner, and I'm a psychotherapist and parenting coach. It's my mission to help parents like you by providing you with the education and resources that you need to have the family life that you've always wanted and to raise children that thrive. Before we get into these 9 myths about attachment and parenting, I think it makes a lot of sense to make a couple of quick points about what attachment science actually is. Understanding what the science actually tells us can help you right now, today, as a parent, and it will help us make sense of why these myths aren't really true at all. First, attachment is an established science. Attachment theory is not just some nice set of beliefs that some people hold to be true. It's an established science in developmental psychology that is taught at most of the top universities in the world and is backed by decades and decades of peer-reviewed research and papers. Attachment is not as controversial in the world of professional psychology the way it can be sometimes on the internet or on parenting blogs. Next, attachment is about the journey from anxiety to security. In a nutshell, attachment science is the understanding that children are born incredibly anxious and they need help feeling more secure in themselves over time. It says that the main determinant of how children learn to relate to others, how they behave, and how they grow into their own unique potential is how secure they're made to feel in their primary relationships growing up. Usually this means to their parents. And lastly for now, attachment is something that takes time, not perfection. Becoming secure is not that easy, and it doesn't just happen because you do the exact same things with different children for some set amount of time. Becoming truly secure takes time, and it takes a lot of experiences. And all children are different. The more sensitive a child is, the harder it can be. But it doesn't take perfect parenting. That doesn't exist. It takes concentrated, smart effort over time to help a child feel secure. Now that I've given you a little bit of a sense about what attachment science is, let's talk about those 9 myths concerning attachment and parenting. Attachment myth number 1. Attachment is only about baby bonding. One of the greatest misperceptions about parenting from an attachment perspective is that attachment is only about baby bonding practices like breastfeeding, or wearing your baby, or maybe even sharing a family bed. Now, don't get me wrong, these can be wonderful practices, especially since babies are mainly able to bond through physical closeness. But a lot of parents come to me and they say they did attachment parenting in the past tense, and they wonder what to do now. I always smile because I know, like the creator of attachment science, John Bowlby, said, that attachment is a cradle to the grave phenomenon. It's never past tense. In fact, I'm also a marriage counselor who works exclusively with parents, and I can tell you that 2 of the most popular and effective couples counseling approaches are attachment-based approaches. Sue Johnson's EFT, Emotionally Focused Therapy, and Stan Tatkin's PACT both focus on the strength of the attachment bond as being the most important thing to focus on in terms of solving relationship issues in couples. Baby bonding is important, but it's only the beginning. Attachment myth number 2. Attachment is all about physical proximity. The second myth we'll cover today, related to the first, is that attachment is purely about physical closeness. We all love being with the ones we love, of course we do, but that's just the first stage of becoming attached in a secure way. Over time, attachment is also meant to develop into feelings of psychological and emotional closeness, feelings like we're close in our heads and in our hearts, even when we're apart. If we were always with our children and we didn't help them develop a sense of being close when apart, this would not be good for them when we can't be together, like when they have to go to school or have a babysitter, or when we have to go to work. I teach my clients how to build an actual culture of connection in their homes that helps with this, and it involves practices like greeting each other really well and warmly, never taking connection for granted, and cultivating feelings of connection even when apart by helping a child to connect well with others they're going to be with and to focus on how good it feels to come back together rather than focusing just on being apart. Attachment myth number 3. Attachment is about quantity of connection. Our third myth is that attachment is about quantity of time together. Again, this is closely related to the first two, but it's not true. It's so great to be able to spend a lot of time with our kids sometimes, but when it comes to meeting their deepest emotional needs, it's the quality of connection that matters most. Children have specific needs that arise at specific times in their development, and it's our job as parents to identify what these needs are and to meet them in a way that they really feel. This is the path to secure attachment, and it requires a quality of connection that is grounded and loving and generous towards the child. For instance, when a child is around 3.5 years old, they need to feel like they are really special in your eyes and that your relationship with them is very special. Telling them how proud you are of them with a gleam in your eye, or telling a story that reflects just how special they are to you and you are to each other, and that just lights them up, can mean more than 10 hours spent together. Attachment myth number 4. Attachment has one-size-fits-all rules. Myth number 4 has to do with the misperception that there is one right way to parent from an attachment perspective. I mentioned this before. Often you'll find articles or posts that say you're supposed to do this exact thing for exactly this long, or that your child has to go to this school, or you should follow this 1, 2, 3 method for doing something. Helping a child to develop security is as much art as it is science, and it's not about dogmatic solutions for everything. Often these one-size-fits-all rules have the effects of just making parents, usually moms, feel bad about themselves because, according to someone else, they're not doing it right. And, like I said, all children are different, and the rules that apply to this one will not apply to the other, and then you will also feel like you're doing it wrong. Like the cover of Time magazine a little while ago that had a headline of, "Are you mom enough?" If you hear someone insisting that they hold the truth about the exact thing you should be doing to be an attachment parent, the chances are that it's not true. Attachment myth number 5. Children can become too attached. Myth number 5 relating to attachment in parenting is that a child can become too attached. There is no such thing as too much secure attachment. Saying that is a fundamental misunderstanding about how attachment works. When a child is referred to as too attached, say to his mother, this is usually describing a child who is actually feeling insecurely attached or anxious in the moment, and that's a totally different thing. They're just showing that they're feeling scared inside and they're too afraid of being apart in the moment. When a child is feeling securely attached, they don't cling. They want to go learn and explore and play. It's like the tether of attachment gets longer and longer the more secure a child feels, and that's what we should be working towards. Win-win for everyone. If a child is seemingly unable to be away from their caregivers, that means we should put more effort into what would make them feel more secure and trust it will happen over time. If we start pushing them away as too attached and needing to learn to be on their own, that will make it worse for them. And speaking of win-win situations, before I get to attachment myths number 6 through 9, I'd love to ask you to consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel. It tells the YouTube algorithm that we're making helpful content, and then you get more videos in your feed that are relevant to you. Attachment myth number 6. Attachment parenting doesn't involve limits or boundaries. Myth number 6 is that parenting with attachment in mind doesn't involve limits or consequences or boundaries. This couldn't be further from the truth. It just needs to be understood in the right way. One of the biggest fights that I witness between couples over parenting is when one parent is in one corner insisting, "We don't set enough limits with these kids," and the other parent is in the other corner saying, "They just need more kindness and connection and understanding." Both of them are correct. I would just argue that from an attachment perspective, we need to put the relationship first, and then from that place, teaching consequences and setting limits is actually beneficial to our children. Kids need to understand the consequences of their actions, both for their day-to-day behavior now, but also long-term so that they can have a successful life. And they need us to set firm but loving limits with them so that they can learn to feel their feelings and process them so they don't get angry or depressed. Setting limits and teaching consequences in a clear and firm but loving and empathetic way is actually a big part of what makes a child feel safe and secure in the world, and therefore it's attachment friendly. Attachment myth number 7. Attachment parenting is helicopter parenting. This term, helicopter parenting, refers to parents who are perceived as always hovering around their children, never letting them leave their sight, and who are overly involved in everything their child does. I want to say first that I'm not interested in criticizing these parents. I find that they are often very sensitive and sometimes anxious people themselves who genuinely sense aspects of the modern world that are wounding to children, and they're trying to protect their kids. However, as you may guess by now, this should not be misunderstood as a model of parenting endorsed by attachment science. Attachment is about helping children create an internal sense of security over time, and an anxious parent who's always hovering around the child is not a situation that leads to security. I hope we can have as much compassion for these parents as possible and pay attention to their concerns, but this is not attachment. I would suggest to these parents that their children need them to be a calm, grounding presence as much as possible, like a pilot who reassures us when we're having a bumpy flight. Attachment myth number 8. Attachment means following the child's lead. This myth refers to how a lot of parents out there believe that their children are supposed to be in the lead when it comes to what they need, which is not really true or practical at all. Of course, parents should be informed by who their children are and the things that their children like and prefer. Of course, we should treat them with love and respect, and we should want them to be happy. But our main job as parents is to be in the lead and to take care of our children from that position. And that can be incompatible with what they think they want in the moment. For example, an ice cream sundae instead of dinner might be what your child thinks they need, but our job is to provide them with the nourishment that they actually need. Children don't really know a lot of the time what they need, or they have a childlike idea of what would make things better. It's our job as parents to be an alpha parent. This doesn't mean being an oppressor or a dictator. It means being a leader, like a mama bear or a papa bear or a mother goose who focuses most on what does this child need right now. Most of the time, that's connection, but sometimes it's limits or a no. Attachment myth number 9. Parenting with attachment means more work and less self-care. Our final myth for now about attachment in parenting is that focusing on attachment means more work for you and less time for you to take care of yourself and to live your life. This is not exactly true. Now, there will be times that the focus on making your child feel secure is going to require more of you. When your child is a baby, or you switch from bad parenting habits to more relationship-friendly ones, this will be the case. However, it's one of the best investments you can make, and it's going to pay off in a big way. You know, I've said it to so many of the parents I've worked with over the years, and it's true, that the way they were parenting when they first came to us, when they came to these videos or to our transformative parenting process, the way they were parenting was actually taking more time and effort. Learning to implement attachment-friendly practices like the ones in this video and the ones you'll find in other videos on our channel can take practice. But when you get these things dialed in, you'll have a more calm and loving home. And there is nothing like the confidence of knowing that you're raising confident children that are learning to be secure and who are growing into their own unique potential. So, those are what I would say are the top 9 myths when it comes to attachment and parenting. The truth is that parenting with attachment in mind is not a parenting trend really, or a parenting style. It's the science of understanding that helping our children become secure, viable human beings is our number one job, and it encourages us to make that a priority in how we parent. I hope you find this information helpful to you in your journey as a parent. I would love to hear your opinions in the space below. What do you think? Do you think I got anything wrong? Did I leave anything out? And what other topics would you like to hear me cover here on the Transformative Parenting YouTube channel? At the end of these videos, I love sharing with you one of my favorite parenting quotes. And today's quote is from Rebecca Eanes, who said, "Too much love won't spoil. Kindness doesn't provoke poor behavior. Respect doesn't invite disrespect. This backwards thinking has caused us to feel trapped into being too harsh for too long. Generations of children are still searching and longing for unconditional love." I love that quote. Please check the description area below for more information and links to other transformative parenting videos. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you again soon.